Okay, right. Hope everyone is well. Just waiting for one more audio to connect, and we will continue. Okay, we're nearly there. Just waiting for one more audio. Okay, so I had a question just towards the end of the previous discussion regarding the airport over in Alicante Airport. And if anyone has been over to Spain before, you'll see that there's this multicolored, predominantly blue bust of a lady, and people were asking, well, do you know what that's about? Is there any sort of historical value behind that? And I actually do know, because I was just watching I think it was National Geographic or one of the history channels, and they actually had a topic based around this particular bust. So I'll just quickly share my screen for anyone who hasn't already seen the bust or is not familiar with what I'm talking about. So hopefully that's come across on your screen now. And this is a bust of a lady who's called La Dama de Elche, which is basically the Lady of Elche. And it was found in, I think it was 1870 something. Don't quote me on that. I know it's 1876, I think, or around about that sort of time. And it was found just basically, I think it was a young boy was doing a dig with his father, and he uncovered this bust, which this picture, which is the best sort of high definition picture that I can find, really doesn't do it justice. The lady has quite an elongated head, and the spools on either side of her head are meant to be some sort of high-tech sort of lost civilization technology that is actually rumored to be part of Atlantis. And it's now on display at the History Museum in Madrid, the Archaeological Museum in Madrid. And there's a bit of sort of to and fro as to whether or not we can actually get it back in Elche. So in Elche is just, well, it's not too far at all. It's probably a 15-minute drive from the airport, and it's a limestone bust. So it's got quite a lot of draws quite a lot of attention, and it is quite spectacular when you see it. I have had the pleasure of seeing it only on picture, but I've been told by friends of mine who've seen it in person that you kind of gaze and you kind of just left staring at it. It's quite alluring. But it was 1897. I've just looked at a note I made earlier, and it's 1897 it was discovered. So that's what that bust is. So hopefully that answers that question for you. So yeah, it's quite interesting. Who knows? Maybe we're living close to the lost civilization of Atlantis. Who knows? Right. So when we created this webinar, we kind of done it, obviously trying to cover every facet of buying abroad, especially in Spain, obviously in Portugal as well. And we try to incorporate as many factors as possible to try and give people as much information as possible. One of those factors being obviously Brexit. It's quite poignant, especially now for people coming out of lockdown who maybe ease of access and traveling is just starting to get a little bit better, and thinking of maybe relocating here or living here or spending more than, say, 6 months of the year here. So whilst we were creating the topics, obviously we decided to put in something about Brexit to try and give people at least some information as to what's going on, and whereby everything was pretty much clear. I wouldn't say cut and dry, but we had some sort of an idea. It seems like it's all changed again. So what I'll do is I will give you sort of an idea as to where things lie, but obviously bear in mind this could change, and it's more likely to change closer towards the end of the year. That's when obviously it's going to be sort of crunch time, and people will have to sort of have an idea as to what they need to do moving forward. But until negotiations are struck, there's really very little that I can say at this time, and it will be just speculation. It wouldn't be sort of anything sort of set in stone. So Obviously now as holiday makers, if you have if you need to use the healthcare system in Spain, if you have an accident or, you need to be rushed into emergency for any reason, you are able to use the healthcare system here absolutely free of charge up until the end of the year, December 2020, using your EHIC card. So that's something that we already know. Now, what happens after that time, it could change. And obviously we can't sort of say for full certainty what will need to be had and what paperwork you will need to submit. But if you're a holiday maker and you need to use the medical system here, you may be required to have travel insurance, which is the most likely form sort of moving forward as I can see it. It's going to be a lot easier for people to get travel insurance when they're booking a holiday that's just going to start and finish whilst they're on holiday. Then there's no cancellation, there's no penalization for cancelling any terms, rather than having any type of other insurance that sort of covers you whilst traveling. If you're someone that already lives here and you need to use the medical system, there are various ways that you can still do that post-Brexit. So the main thing that you need to remember is if you are receiving a state pension, because that will allow you, well, in theory, allow you to use the medical system over here. If you are self-employed working in Spain and you've paid into the social security system here, that will again allow you to use the medical system. If you're receiving a state pension, if you're a permanent resident, which is probably the easiest way, because obtaining residency out of all the options is probably the easiest way if you do live here in order to keep on using the healthcare system. And if you're someone who's a worker, who's been, you're in the UK, but you're actually been posted here for work reasons, that would again entitle you to use the medical system. And also if you're under the age of 26 and you are studying, and you're a student under the age of 26. So those are the ways that are in existence at this moment in time where you can use the healthcare system, and obviously coming out of Europe, you're not going to be penalized, or you don't need to have any sort of private healthcare sort of setup. So another sort of implication of Brexit, which will affect a lot of people, and it's just something to bear in mind, and something that just sort of came to me half an hour ago, was your roaming charges on your mobile phones, bearing in mind that that could also be affected and that could also be changed moving forward. So obviously look at that, if you want to keep in contact, but most people are making phone calls via Wi-Fi and using, things like WhatsApp and MSN, and is it MSN or Messenger, whatever it's called nowadays. So obviously bear that in mind if you are sort of going to be traveling and need to make, any calls back home. Now there's a lot of confusion around the NIE and the TIE, which is something that's been in existence for quite some time. But the NIE is your number, it's your tax number, and it's simply just that. It's a number that you don't necessarily have to keep the paperwork with you. You can just make a record of your number. It's used for obviously buying property, opening up a bank account. Even if you wanted to get a mobile phone, you would have to submit your tax number. Now, the way things could change for residents and people who already live here is they may need an additional card, a physical card, which is called a TIE. Now, the TIE is something more along the lines of a national identity card, and is simply just that. It has a TIE number at the bottom of your photograph. It dictates what your name, surname is, date of birth, also what your gender is, and then that's something that you'll be required to carry on your person wherever you go, and that's again something that's quite easy to obtain. That's the most likely way moving forward from the research that I've done as to how people outside of the European Union will be able to live in Spain for, let's say, 10 to 12 months out of the year. So just bear that in mind, that the TIE and the NIE are two, although they sound quite similar, are two very different things. And also they come with two different terms as well, if you like. One has speaking to a lawyer as well, we believe that one has a 5-year term and the other a 10-year term. Whether or not they change that, whether or not they have discussions and they make one that's just for residents who are already residents before December 2020 moving forward, which I can see as the most likely, which will be maybe for a 10-year period, which you will then have to have renewed. And for ones that come in after that time, maybe they'll start with a 5-year term and then can renew onto a 10-year term once that's expired. So the implications of Brexit are very small. They're small details that could make a huge impact, but won't hinder your living capacity or your options here, living here. Another thing as well is claiming on your pensions as well. So there is nothing I can say on that, whereby I did have something prepared, and that was literally only 2 weeks ago regarding the pensions. In that 2-week period, things have changed. So rather than go into anything now, it's probably better to see how the dust settles. There are talks of actually having a tax added on top because of being outside of the European Union. How that's going to work as well, we're not sure. So unfortunately, this conversation is a little vague, purely because no one really knows. And that's something that I would say, keep in contact with us. Definitely sign into our YouTube channel and subscribe to that. And if there's any information regarding Brexit moving forward, we will definitely update our clients and yourselves and put any sort of helpful hints on our website as to what's going to happen moving forward. Another thing as well is that there's a bit of confusion behind the whole 90 days, 180 days, and how that works, what that means. The basic way to sort of look at that, and this is by, again, only the research that I've done in speaking with legal advisors and how we understand it. And some legal advisors still don't understand it themselves. It's still quite confusing. So there are 26 countries, I believe. Yes, 26 countries that have, like, if you like, a borderless outlook on how they operate. And it's freedom of travel. Obviously, being within the European Union, it's to encourage exports and imports from our neighboring countries. So within that zone, if you are someone who lives within that zone, the term was meant to be 90 days. You can stay in the country for 90 days in a 180-day period. From that point, then you will, so basically in effect, 90 days and 6 months. From there, you would have to leave the country for, I believe, 90 days before you can then re-enter. Now, there is another school of thought whereby it states that you have 90 days is in a year if you're outside of that zone, and 180 days, which is 6 months, if you're within the European Union, and that's within a year. So literally speaking, over the past 2 weeks with 3 different legal advisors doing research online, I have probably about 3 different answers to that question. And I don't think nobody actually knows exactly how it's going to work and how long the duration of time you'll be allowed to stay in Spain for. So the easiest way to go about this really will be, if you have an inkling that you will be spending more than 6 months of the year, or even more than 3 months of the year. I mean, most people will go on holiday for a couple of weeks to a month. They have friends and family, maybe 2 months. But if you're someone who wants to escape the winters of the UK, or you want to basically use the property for around 3 to 4 months, I would say the best way to go about it will be to basically go for some form of residency, especially if you're going to be, well, more so if you're going to be spending more than 6 months of the year here. So if you're going to be spending 3 months, that's not a problem. Nothing should affect you at all. If you're going to be spending more than 6 months, apply for residency. You have to spend more than 6 months of the year before you can sort of look at that anyway. So if you are going to be spending vast majority of time in Spain, outside of the UK, but you still want to have a bolt hole in the UK, apply for residency, and hopefully that will hold you in good stead regarding healthcare, and that will give you ease of access leaving and entering the country. So Brexit is a very, very tricky situation at the moment because no one really knows what's going to happen in the future. Everything is a little bit to and fro, and the main reason being is that there are actually 180,000 Spanish people who live in the UK, whereby there's about 370,000 who live in Spain, of Brits. The UK are quite forceful and show a stern hand of wanting to basically deport all the Spanish people in the UK back to Spain, then I would consider it wise to assume that the Spanish will do likewise and will try and force all the Brits who are in Spain back to the UK. Now, obviously, they're not going to just force people out, just because they have a political spat. It's not as simple as that. I think it's more down to not having the paperwork, and draining on the resources of the country. So provided that you've got the residency or you have the golden visa as another option if you're spending over 500,000, then they may seek to do that. Now, this isn't to sort of scare anyone. This is really just to prepare you that these things are imminent and could have a detrimental effect on your outlook on how you want to move forward whilst living here. So that's pretty much, in terms of Brexit, all really I can go into, because there is so much confusion at the moment. There is a lot of to and fro. The only way I can say it is no one really knows. And if I knew, I'll probably be the richest man on earth. But as I say, apologies for it being a little bit shorter than expected. I just don't want to give anyone misleading information or try and say that this is going to happen and then quite the opposite does happen. Regarding the 90 days, 180 days, whether or not you need to be a resident holder, you've got the TIE, the whole situation is a little bit to and fro at the moment. But what I will say is that there are people who live in Spain outside of the European Union and have done so for many years. And there are ways that you can hold yourself in good stead moving forward by just applying for the right documentation and just trying to future-proof yourself and your life here. So, has anyone got any questions? Let me just have a look and see. Okay, so we've kind of touched on the 90 days, 6-month periods, 182 days, 184 days as well, which I think it's 184, or maybe it's, okay. So I think I've kind of covered that, and it is confusing, and hopefully moving forward and towards the end of the year, they will shed some light on that and be a bit clearer. After Brexit, would it be necessary to apply for a visa to visit Spain? I really can't answer that question. The likelihood is yes. The likelihood is yes. It won't be terribly difficult. I would imagine it's going to be quite a simple application and quite a simple process. But yes, I think you will have to have a tourist visa to visit Spain. And obviously then that will come with certain rights as well. After Brexit, will application for residency be more difficult than now? Again, possibly. Well, actually, no. I mean, to apply for residency, it depends on your personal circumstances, as I've mentioned, how long you're going to stay here for. And we have people from USA, we have people from outside of the European Union who currently live here, and they have done so and applied for residency, have been successful. So it depends on what surplus money that you have and whether or not you can fund your lifestyle here, whether or not you're going to be a drain on the economy, for the Spanish economy. They look at every facet of your life and they kind of assess you really to see if it's something that they can admit. So I wouldn't say it's going to be more difficult, but I would say anything you can do before December 2020, it's going to save you a lot of time and hassle. Okay. What is the best visa to apply for? I'm from the US. The best visa would be for residency, I would say, is the golden visa. We've covered that on a previous discussion, which goes into a little bit more detail as to what the golden visa is. And the golden visa is basically a scheme set by many European countries to encourage foreign investment. The golden visa basically allows you to spend 500,000 euros on property. And by doing so, you will basically get fast-tracked, if you like, into obtaining a residency card. Now, the 500,000 euros has to be in cash. It cannot be mortgaged. It can't be, say, 250 in cash, 250 in mortgage. And there are a few other stipulations as well, but we do have a discussion with Louise from Imount. In fact, two discussions regarding the golden visa. Again, on our YouTube channel, which she goes through it in quite some detail, and she's far more experienced and far more qualified to do so than I am. So I would urge you to definitely have a listen on that if it's something that interests you. Are there any other options other than the golden visa? No. Well, you can go through the standard residency scheme, the standard residency program, but you would have to stay for a certain number of days. You would have to be paying into the social security system. There are certain things that you will need to do, and it's all done on a score, whereby with the golden visa, you're kind of not guaranteed, but it's a higher percentage of being able to obtain the residency. There are other forms of the golden visa as well, where You could buy into a company, or there are various ways you can do it, and I can send information out on a PDF which goes through those ways. But for most people who want to live here, the golden visa of spending half a million is the easiest way and by far the most practical. All right. And also as well, if you are thinking about actually coming over and experiencing what Spain's like to live, let me know, and what I can do is sort of put together a nice sort of tour, sort of giving you an idea of different locations and areas and things that I think could be good for you, and especially if you're relocating. Obviously, having been through the procedure myself, I do sort of know where's good, where's not, where's a place to live rather than a place to holiday in. So we'll just wait a few moments and see if any more questions come up. But if you've got any questions at all regarding buying a property or regarding Spain in general, living here or anything at all, mortgages, then please feel free to enter the questions in the chat. And again, I'm sorry I'm being so vague, and apologies if I sound confused, but the whole subject matter at the moment is very, very upside down and inside out. No one really quite knows, and it just changes literally from January this year through to now. It's probably changed. The stance has changed about 3 times with regards to expats living here, and especially how they obtain and use the healthcare system. So the information I've given now is pretty much solid from what I can understand. I can't really see too much variance in that. But hopefully as time moves on, closer towards the end of the year, there'll be a bit more clarity, and I will try and bring you that clarity as and when it happens. But we'll just see if there's any more questions that comes through. Okay, well, I don't think there's any further questions. If anyone wants to speak to me on a one-to-one basis, please feel free to. That's probably the way where I can give more of a bespoke and sort of tailored approach to buying a property here and living here in general. The best contact number to use is my mobile, which is 0044 7518 065922. Still don't know it off the top of my head. And we've also got the office free phone number, which is 0800 133 7644. So if there's no further questions, I'd just like to thank everyone for spending the day, if you could manage to catch the earlier session, and also spending the time with me now. But I wish you all a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday and Sunday, and we'll be back on Monday, and we look forward to seeing you all then. Bye-bye.